unmatched.
So what else could have caused the marks? One theory begins with the laying of water pipes in the forest and goes on to explain what Bob Taylor saw, a theory developed by science writer Stuart Campbell.
He thought he saw a spacecraft, because that was the only logical explanation to him, sitting in a clearing, but it was a magnified image, in my opinion, of a planet millions of miles away.
But what about Bob's injuries? The theory continues that the sight of the mirage triggered an epileptic fit.
It caused him to be paralysed, he couldn't speak, and of course he was unable to walk. These are symptoms of that.
Was it in the forest?
But Bob hadn't suffered from epilepsy before, and those who know him have no reason to doubt him.
Bob Taylor was a straightforward forester who had worked here for many years. He had no illusions of any kind, and he's not the sort of chap who would have invented a story like this.
Then there were the rips in the trousers Bob Taylor was wearing. Rips, he claims, were made by probes from the UFO. The trousers were sent to the police laboratories to be put under the scrutiny of forensic expert Lester Knibb.
There was 2 sets of damage predominantly, close enough to be considered symmetrical. It's obviously been caused by a lifting action. It's not the sort of action that's caused by a fall. The tear would normally be down the trousers. Certainly the story could fit the bill, that some object or objects had moved across a clearing towards him, attempted to lift him up and carry him off.
Even to this day, we're completely baffled of 1, who assaulted Mr. Taylor, and 2, what made these marks on the ground.
This is only one of the many local UFO cases which remain unsolved. Some witnesses say they're left with profound after effects, desperate to find a way of coming to terms with seeing something that defies belief. One of the most recent cases has left 2 local men with an obsession to find out what it was they encountered on a lonely stretch of road through the Pentland Hills.
We come back here quite often, looking about with our camera and that. I'm just interested to find out, to see if we can maybe see this again. The craft was bigger than the road. Me and Colin reckon that the craft was about 30 foot wide. We were both very frightened. It has sort of affected my life, seeing something like this. I've never seen nothing ever like it before.
Since I've suffered from bad depression, which I never used to do, it's just always on my mind. I just want to know what happened that night. I didn't really believe in it, UFOs, but this experience has sort of changed my mind.
The Scottish UFOs are affecting local people in another way. They're becoming a tourist attraction. A plaque has been put up where Bob Taylor claimed his close encounter in the forest, bringing visitors from near and possibly very far. Medicine has learned many ways to deal with human pain. Consciousness can be wiped out in an instant by powerful anesthetics. For centuries, Chinese acupuncturists have inserted tiny needles into their patients' skin. Nobody knows how a needle in the ear can prevent back pain, but many Western doctors have come to accept that it can. And hypnosis can be used to paralyze the nerves which carry pain signals. Without painkillers, most modern surgery would be unthinkable. So imagine the reaction of an American doctor whose patient said she wanted him to operate without anything to stop the pain.
I'm fine.
In almost 35 years as a physician, I have never seen anything like that before. She said she didn't need anesthesia. It just...
Sure you want to go through with this?
Thought of.
I block out the pain.
At about age 7, I discovered that I was psychic. As I grew older, my abilities grew not only stronger, but as I grew, they grew. About 10 years ago, I discovered that I was able to be pain and medication free, never taking any kind of pain pill for anything. I didn't have any pain, I didn't have any swelling, I didn't have any bleeding, plus the ability that I had helped me to heal faster than the average person.
Penny Polito calls it her pipeline. Doctors in Florida, where she lives, were skeptical to say the least about her claims. But she was so convincing that they agreed to operate to remove a cyst from her arm, with anesthetic standing by.
I enjoy it so much, but of course you know that.
When I put the knife on her skin, I thought that she would rebel and possibly scream a bit because it was going to be painful. And she didn't.
The few minutes that it took was enough for him to have his shirt wringing wet because he was a nervous wreck. Why? He said, "Penny, it's logical. Nobody can have surgery without anesthetic."
I'm just looking forward to my vacation, and it's going to be such fun. We go.
The anesthetic
to the
standing
north.
by was never used. To the doctor's amazement, Penny didn't feel a thing. And she went on to have 6 more operations. Operations potentially even more painful.
You have 3 significant-sized cysts, all located in a very, very sensitive part of the breast. I can't see any reason in the world why anyone in their right mind would want to do this surgery without anesthesia.
I can do it. I can. I've done it before.
I've seen many phenomenal things. Nothing compares to this. I imagine the pain would be described as excruciating.
In another operation, Penny had to have a toe amputated.
I didn't sleep for a week before we did this because I didn't believe it could be done, and I was very nervous.
But in spite of Dr. Willens's fears, Penny still refused anesthetic.
I asked her, did she feel pain? She always told me no.
I feel nothing.
We cut the skin, we cut deeper into the tissue, and we cut the bone and remove it. After I got the bone out, she says, I want to see what other people feel like. She says, I'm going to pipe out for a minute. And she says, oh my God, that's terrible.
So could Penny Polito really have been using psychic power to block her pain? A leading psychiatrist who examined her thinks not.
When I examined her, I discovered very quickly that this lady was very gifted and she was using self-hypnosis. She would go into a trance or hypnotic state quickly and spontaneously, and as a result, turn off sensation to that part of her body.
But those who've operated on her disagree.
Most people in a hypnotic state are quieter. They lay back and they don't ask too many questions. But she was lively, she was wide awake, she was trying to sit up. She was joking with the staff, she was joking with me, she was telling stories.
If not hypnosis, could she have taken something?
She showed absolutely no signs of clinical use of any kind of drug.
Or could she have a medical condition which made her unable to feel pain?
I don't know of any medical condition that blocks out pain. And it's my understanding that she has the ability to block it out, and if she didn't do that, she would feel pain.
Penny Polito claims to have other psychic powers too. To thank Dr. Willens for agreeing to operate, she decided to make him a gift.
I told him that I would make him a winner at Las Vegas at the gaming tables. And I would share the knowledge that I had with him telepathically.
An ace.
It's like the bets were placed for me, and whatever I did was absolutely correct. If I needed an 8, the next card was an 8. It was like magic.
Hey, blackjack, blackjack.
Dr. Willens won several $1,000s, but surely it was just luck.
And I finally figured out how to win money. So the following week, I went over to the Bahamas and tried the same thing, but just, I didn't win.
Give me one more here.
If Penny had such powers, though, surely they had much greater potential.
It would have benefited all mankind if we could have found out the how and the why. Then burn victims and cancer patients could have been pain-free, just like me, would have been my gift to mankind.
But that wasn't to be. One day she was shopping in a do-it-yourself store.
3 boards came down and struck me on the head.
Are you okay? Are you all right?
Penny Polito says she felt pain for the first time in years. It was a shock, but she seemed to recover. She forgot about the accident and went ahead with another operation. But this time, her powers were to fail her.
Towards the end of the surgery, I began to experience feelings I shouldn't have. And that was the first indication to me something was wrong. By this time, I realized that the ability was lost, and it never came back.
It was then that Penny took a step which would make legal history. She took the DIY store to court, claiming damages not just for physical injury, but also for loss of psychic pain-blocking powers. A few days before the trial, the store offered her $17,000 to drop the case. But money wasn't all Penny wanted.
I wanted to legally prove that something, no matter what anybody wants to call it, did exist.
Court is now in session.
Our reconstruction is based on reports of the court case, which began with the DIY store's lawyer making an astonishing request.
I do not believe that Mrs. Polito has paranormal powers, but if indeed she does, we would ask that she refrain from using them to mentally invade the minds of the jury.
No, Mr. Slock.
The judge refused, but ruled that the jury should reach a verdict on both the physical and psychic injuries claimed by Penny Polito's lawyer.
On both physical and psychic injuries. Mr. Dubinsky.
While I understand that what I am asking you to accept, to some of you may even sound crazy, we will present evidence that Mrs. Polito does indeed have abilities that go beyond the comprehension of most of us.
The doctors who had performed all 7 operations backed Penny Polito's claims.
This woman has some very strange and unreal abilities.
He brought in the saw that was used to cut the bone out of my foot.
This is a mock-up of the human foot. This is the left foot, which I operated on. Then using this, cut entirely through the bone.
And he sawed through the bones to demonstrate what I must have been feeling and experiencing during the surgery.
Things started to go wrong, however, when the DIY store's lawyer told the court about her operation a fortnight after the accident.
As far as we're concerned, if she had that ability, she still has it. She's simply choosing not to use it.
In his closing statement, he called her claims bizarre, absurd, and ridiculous.
And there is no such thing as paranormal activity as she describes it and defines it. Thank you.
The jury may now retire to consider the evidence and reach a verdict. Has the jury reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. We, the jury, found that the plaintiff, Mrs. Polito, did indeed suffer physical injury as a result of an accident at Home Depot. However, we do not feel that she has suffered any loss of her psychic powers.
I read that the jurors believed that the power existed. I realized that the case wasn't totally lost, that the jurors believed me.
I myself was truly convinced that she had some amazing abilities. She wasn't awarded damages for the loss of her psychic abilities because she really didn't prove that she had lost the abilities due to the accident.
That part for me was a victory, because at least then I knew that jurors were convinced a power was real, it happened, it existed.
Pain-blocking powers were tested as long ago as 1935 by a group from London University. They carried out an experiment in which an Indian man walked across hot coals at a temperature of 800 degrees Celsius. He should have suffered agonizing burns, but he didn't. If we could find out how such things can happen, medical science could be on the verge of a major breakthrough. Until next week, goodbye. The human race has always been obsessed by things it can't understand. The more elusive the answer, the more we try to find it. The Society for Psychical Research has compiled hundreds of reports since it was founded in 1882. These are just some of them, proving the Society's members believe the existence of paranormal phenomena. But after more than a century, they still haven't been able to find out how or why. Our stories tonight are as strange as any the Society has ever encountered. We'll meet a woman who works alongside doctors to practice astonishing healing powers, and we'll hear from the patients she has apparently cured. First, this particular report was compiled by a group investigating ghost stories at the fortress which has guarded England's shores longer than any other, from the Iron Age to the Second World War. High above the famous White Cliffs on the south coast, Dover Castle is the kind of place you might expect to attract ghost stories. Staff there take them with a pinch of salt, but more recent events have made them take their unearthly guests much more seriously. Nicknamed Hellfire Corner, damp and eerie. There are 3.5 miles of these tunnels carved through the cliffs during World War II. Gloomy or not, today they are the favourite tourist attraction in this busy ferry port. Leslie Simpson has guided thousands of people on their plunge into history, but there's one tour he'll never forget.
I had a group of about 20 people.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll just follow me through now, please.
We came into the repeater station. I brought the group up to the barrier. I stand on a step where I can overlook the group.
You're now in the Defence Telecommunications Network Station, DTN. We call this the repeater station.
Information.
All lines entering the headquarters came through a narrow well shaft, 150 feet below this room.
I had to notice the lady, she was very intent, and she suddenly looked very alarmed, and she fell down and slipped down onto her knee.
I'm okay, I'm fine.
But the lady wasn't really fine, as Leslie found out at the end of the tour.
Thanks very much. Glad you enjoyed the tour. Goodbye. Bye. Goodbye. Thanks for coming. Are you okay now? You didn't hurt yourself in there, did you?
No, I'm fine. But, well, this is going to sound very strange, but I think I ought to tell you what happened down there.
Behind that, on the level above...
She explained that she'd been watching a man. She had a uniform on, a naval uniform, down at the far end of the repeater station. And she thought he belonged here, part of the tour, tinkering with the equipment.
It was essential that this equipment worked.
She got alarmed because he started to walk towards the group. He was walking quite fast. He came down the second small flight of steps, and he just walked straight through the barrier and right through her.
Technically, this room was known as a repeater or amplifier.
This sighting is only one of many in a complex which spans 3 eras: the Hellfire Corner tunnels, the old gun rooms built to fight off Napoleon's threatened invasion, and the ancient castle where William the Conqueror once stayed. All have reports of inexplicable goings-on. Bomb-proof and impregnable, the evacuation of Dunkirk was planned here. Hundreds of people lived and worked inside the cliff face. The tunnels were sealed for half a century before being opened up as a museum. Even now, visitors are allowed round only with supervision. Some would say for good reason.
I had a tour group of about 25 to 30 people, and the tour had been going well until we reached the repeater station. I noticed a father and daughter standing slightly away from the rest of the group.
150 feet below this room, connecting with the main distribution frame behind the desks.
The girl appeared to be in communication with somebody who appeared invisible to me, and her father was looking on interestedly. And then all of a sudden the father disappeared out of the repeater station.
This equipment worked at all times. At the very rear of the tunnel is the
Can you stay with the rest of the group, please?
Where 24 GPO engineers...
Yes, of course. Sorry.
Standby.
Karen tried to forget the incident and carried on with her tour.
move into the next room, ladies and gentlemen, a piece of light-hearted information for you. This room is supposed to be the most haunted room in Hellfire Corner.
Yes, I know, and I've just seen the ghost.
At that point, I thought we got a bit of a one here and dismissed what he said.
OK, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to follow me.
He was very casual about the whole thing, but the girl was very withdrawn and shaken. She looked in shock, in fact.
Karen realised something very unusual had happened, so she took down the details.
He said his name was Bill Billings, and he said he was killed when he was assembling an amplifier rack or something.
I thought that they had definitely seen someone down here.
Despite such testimonies, some of the castle staff are quite sure that the reason for it all is a perfectly natural one. After 8 years of taking groups around the castle, Philip Wyburn-Brown thinks he knows what's behind the apparently abnormal activities.
The building is 800 years old. It's built high on the cliff. It is subject to a lot of wind and air currents up here. So I think a lot of it is very much the natural phenomena of the building itself.
So could it all just be a combination of natural atmospherics and overactive imaginations? Local investigators have done a scientific stakeout of the castle and its many tunnels and passages on 3 all-night vigils.
We brought a team of 16 people into Dover Castle, divided the team into pairs, working to a very strict shift rota. We brought in very sophisticated equipment such as a high-tech computerised sensing machine which senses changes in temperature, movement. Everybody's equipped with tape recorders, thermometers, video cameras. Each pair were given a certain location to work on.
Group H, Sue Nichols and Keith Akers, were stationed in a passageway with their tape recorder.
We'd been sat there about 5 hours when suddenly there was an enormous bang.
Unable to believe their ears, they played back the tape.
And we knew there was no doors anywhere around. There was nobody else near us.
And then the investigators say they didn't just hear what they claimed to be poltergeist activity, they saw it.
At approximately 2 o'clock in the morning, my partner and myself heard a loud bang in this room, and we investigated this door here, found it was to be locked, and moved away approximately 10 feet, and there was this huge bang behind us, which made us both jump out our skins. We turned around quite petrified to see the door still vibrating madly.
The next time it happened, the investigators were determined to get proof. Chris Cherry, a master at the University of Kent, trained a video camera on the door.
The noise was quite tremendous, and all those tapestries above our heads started swaying. And this was rather extraordinary. We thought we got a paranormal phenomenon. And I very stupidly yelled out, "We've got it!" And of course that screwed the whole thing up, and it ceased.
Each team who were working in the keep thoroughly checked the area out, and we could find no apparent natural reason for the door to ram at all.
So what could be the cause of the events at Dover Castle? Michael Brumley is a psychic who claims he can tune into departed spirits. He's never been here before, so what will he find in Hellfire Corner?
This area is very powerful and very strong. I would expect that at different times people walk through here.
In the repeater station, Michael came up with a name.
I've just been given the name Helen. For what reason?
But the castle official watching Michael Brumley wasn't impressed.
He started talking about Helen, and there just wouldn't have been women in that area, so I became very sceptical and just didn't believe what he was saying. It was just didn't gel, just wasn't right.
However, a few days after we filmed Michael Bromley, another visitor, an Australian tourist who'd only just arrived in Britain, astonished everyone.
I told the tour guide what I'd seen while I was in this room, how a ghostly figure had come running up towards me. He was blonde, he was wearing navy blue. He said his name was Samuel, and he was asking me questions about a woman called Helen. He was very agitated and wanting to find out about where Helen was.
When she came to me and told me about Helen, you really could have just knocked me down with a feather. It was amazing, really. It sort of changed my attitude, really, to the place.
Well, I imagine it would. And it's not the first time that Michael Bromley's psychic information has made an impact. He's previously been employed as official psychic to the Olympic Games, helping police to sniff out security loopholes. Strange but true. Think of the world's greatest discoveries and inventions. Whatever you come up with, you have to admit that none is nearly as fantastic as the human body. Our eyes can take in more than the largest telescope. Our brains are more complex than the most powerful computer. And all the information in this bookcase would just fit into the genetic blueprint of a single human cell. And all that from something that's about 70% water. Even now, scientists don't really understand what it is that gives us the spark we call life. And there are still many conditions where conventional medicine has unfortunately had to admit defeat. But there are those who claim they can perform the most amazing cures without drugs or surgery. And some doctors are coming to believe it too.
All the doctors refer patients to Lorraine. We don't think that what she does is really any different to what we do.
Hello. I have an appointment with Lorraine.
Even if you can't understand something, if for some people it does seem to be effective, then why not use it?
I thought it would be akin to a religious experience, people standing around a font or something like that, dunking people into religious water and healing them that way.
I can have a look in that ear, if I may. So
a doctor's surgery in Otley, a Yorkshire town where people aren't given to exaggerated claims, especially the doctors. But when their medical powers can do no more, they've come to accept the more unorthodox methods of Lorraine Ham. So much so that Lorraine now works at the surgery.
I'll often start at the head, and what's happening then is I'm just sensing a little bit deeper as to what the problem is.
Lorraine says that without even touching, she feels energies in the body, and the healing begins.
There are energy centres throughout the body. I can usually sense where there's a depletion or if it's overcharged.